To remove the outer cover, remove 4 screws, 2 on each side. The front panel can be removed by firstly removing 1 red screw from the top. Then remove the jog and shuttle ring. Now unclip 3 plastic clips located underneath the machine. Please note that it is not necessary to remove the metal base plate. Next, unclip the plastic clips on both sides of the front panel. The front panel can now be removed as shown. As you can see, we now have good access to all of the front panel controls and individual components. The metal base plate can be removed if required by removing 6 gold-coloured screws from the underside. As you can see, removing the base does not provide us with total access to the major mechanical items. It is therefore necessary to remove the mechanism to be able to fully service the underside. We will be demonstrating this later in the tape. Even though the underside of the mechanism is enclosed, it is still possible to have easy access to the important test points for servicing purposes. These can be clearly seen here. To free a jammed tape, we must unload the mechanism by manually rotating the loading motor. This can also be done with an external supply of approximately 4.5 volts DC supplied across the loading motor connections. This can be done with the motor in circuit. Whichever method of unloading is used, it is always necessary to take up any slack tape by rotating the capstan motor by hand. Another method of freeing a jammed tape is to use service mode number 7. Service mode number 7 is manual loading motor drive and is selected from the end of service mode number 6. To change service modes, we select simultaneously fast forward and eject. We can now select service mode 1 through to service mode number 6. Once in service mode number 6, we short out a spare switch location on the front panel labelled TV VTR. This now puts the machine into service mode number 7. By using the stop and play keys, we now have manual control over the loading motor, allowing us to remove a tape using the machine's own power supply. It's important to note that in service mode number 7, the microprocessor also drives the capstan motor to take up any slack tape. In this way, we can also confirm that the mechanism is functioning correctly after repair has been carried out. To remove the mechanism, it is necessary to remove 7 connectors. These are the fully raised head, signal input to the head amplifier pack, cylinder drive signals, capstan drive signals, the ACE assembly connection, regulator transistor, and connection from the mechanism to the main printed circuit board. We can now remove the 3 screws and 7 connectors that will enable us to remove the mechanism from the main VTR section. Once the mechanism has been removed, it is necessary to remove the mechanism connection PCB. This is held in place with 4 screws as shown. The mechanism connection PCB contains the tape sensors. These are take-up sensor, infrared LED, supply sensor, record prevention tab, supply real table sensor, take-up real table sensor, loading motor electrical connection to the mode switch, and main interface connection to the PCB. At first glance, the mechanism looks very different to the previous G mechanism. These differences mainly involved the new items such as the loading motor and bracket, the main lever assembly, and the position and design of the new mode select switch. The top plate of the cassette carriage can be removed by gently pushing 2 plastic clips on either side and lifting off. The cassette holder can be removed by lifting it up as shown. The sides of the cassette carriage are held in with 4 fixing screws. We can now clearly see the operation of the cassette compartment. To remove the cassette opener piece, release the two clips on top. The pinch roller can now be removed. Next, carefully release the plastic clip which holds the P5 post stopper in position and lift off. Next, remove the P5 stopper base. This is held in place with a screw and a cut washer. The pinch cam can now be removed. This is followed by the P5 arm unit as shown. The take-up tension regulator arm is the next item to be removed. It is held in with a clip and a tensioning spring. Now remove the take-up reel table, which is also held in with a small plastic clip. It is not usually necessary to disassemble the top any further. We can now start to disassemble the bottom of the machine. The first part to be removed is the belt along with its belt tensioner and SS brake unit, as this also acts as a fixing for the main lever. The tensioner is held in with two fixing screws. We can now remove the loading motor and bracket. This is held in place with a fixing screw and a plastic clip which unclips from the top of the mechanism. The loading motor's bracket can now be lifted and moved in the direction shown. You can clearly see the worm drive gear used to obtain a high torque drive. We can now remove the worm wheel gear by lifting it off. The next item to be removed is the main lever assembly. This is held in place with 3 cut washers. However, it is only necessary to remove 2 of them as demonstrated. The main lever can now be lifted at one end and removed as shown. Some mechanical posts are held under tension by the main lever. These may spring loose as you remove the main lever unit. We can now remove the supply loading arm, followed by the take-up loading arm. The mode select switch can be removed by removing 1 screw. You can clearly see the gearing drive to the mode select switch. The main cam can easily be removed by lifting it off as shown. We can remove the cut washer which holds in place the center clutch. We can now lift off the idler regulator lever. This is a very small piece and care must be taken as this part could be easily lost. The connection lever can now be removed. We can remove the capstan stopper, which is held in place with 1 fixing screw. Now the capstan rotor can be removed from the capstan housing. Care must be taken not to lose the 2 small circular oil seals. The capstan rotor is hard to remove because you are pulling against the large magnets in the rotor assembly itself. The capstan stator can be removed by withdrawing 3 brass screws. The sub-cam gear can now be removed. The supply and take-up gears can now be removed. These are fixed in place with plastic clips which are part of the gear mouldings. These clips are very fragile, so therefore care must be taken when releasing. We can now remove the idler arm unit. As you can now see, we have removed all of the mechanical parts necessary to repair the K mechanism down to a component level. The realignment of the K mechanism must be performed in the cassette down mode. The service manual also describes the realignment in the cassette down mode. The first item to be reinstalled is the idler arm unit. We can now install the take-up and supply reel tables. Following this, we must install the connection lever unit. Before we install the center clutch, please note the helical teeth used on the clutch assembly. Helical gearing is used to reduce the gear noise during, for example, the play mode. Helical gearing is also employed on other gears used in the area of the reel tables. The center clutch is installed as shown and is held in place with a single cut washer. We must now install the sub-cam gear. The sub-cam gear will need phase alignment, but as yet there is nothing to phase align it with. We now refit the capstan stator. There is a hole in the capstan stator which must be positioned directly above a hole in the capstan bearing. To do this, we can use a centering tool as shown in the diagram. This diagram is also on page 1-3 of the service manual. For the purposes of this demonstration, we can roughly install the stator and fix it in an approximate position with the 3 screws provided. During repair of a customer's unit, this alignment must be accurate. The capstan rotor can now be installed. As you install the capstan shaft, please don't forget to reinstall the 2 oil seals as shown. Now refit the capstan stopper. It's held in place with 1 fixing screw, shown at the top. The hole at the other end is for fixing of the mode select switch, as we will see later. We can now install the supply loading arm. And following this, the take-up loading arm. Care must be taken when installing the loading arms to ensure that their alignment is as shown in the highlighted area. Now install the idler regulator lever in the position shown. The main cam is installed next. Once again, care must be taken to ensure that its phase alignment is correct with regards to the sub-cam gear, also shown in the highlighted area. The main lever can now be installed, taking care to ensure that it is as flat as possible to the chassis and that all of the posts are located correctly. It is a good idea to install the lower right side first and then fix it in place with a cut washer. Then you can move on to the top right side, knowing that the first part won't fall off. This point is the fixing point for the cut washer. Now we can locate the top right side of the main lever, making sure also it is flat as possible to the chassis. The top right side must also be phased aligned as shown. Once aligned, this section is held in place with another cut washer. To position the left side of the main lever, ensure that it is flat as possible to the chassis. This diagram, also on page 2-21 of the service manual, clearly shows the post position when installing the main lever. Hold down the left side of the main lever, then install the belt tensioner assembly. The mode switch can now be installed, paying attention to its phase alignment. The mode switch is held in place with a fixing screw. An alignment can be finally confirmed. Basic mechanical movement can be seen by moving the main cam as shown. Confirming yet again that the alignment is correct. Further mechanical movement can be seen by installing and rotating the worm wheel gear. This diagram, also on page 217 of the service manual, gives us a final visual check of the phase alignment. The loading motor can now be installed and fixed in place with its fixing screw and clip. The toothed belt can now be put in position and correctly tensioned with the tensioner. tensioner should be installed in approximately the halfway position. We have now completed the alignment of the underside of the mechanism. We can now start to realign the top side. Firstly, install the take-up reel table and confirm the operation of the brakes. Next, install the pinch cam, observing its phase alignment as shown. The P5 arm can now be installed, making sure that it is placed in the unloaded position as shown. Install the P5 stopper base and fix it in place with its screw and cut washer. To make installation of the take-up tension regulator easier, first position the spring as shown in the close-up. Then fit the lever onto its post and push the spring with a screwdriver. The lever is held in position with a plastic clip, which is part of the moulding. Now install the P5 post stopper. Followed by the pinch roller assembly. And finally, the cassette opener piece. This has a lug on the cassette opener piece which locates into a groove on the pinch roller assembly to stop the lateral movement of the pinch roller. A final visual check can be carried out with the aid of this diagram, which is also on page 2-16 of the service manual. Full mechanical confirmation can be checked by using a box such as this, which connects from a power supply to the loading motor and simply changes the polarity across the loading motor to load and unload the mechanism. To reinstall the cassette carriage, firstly ensure that the carriage connection gear is in the 3 o'clock position, as shown. Don't forget that the mechanism is installed in the cassette down mode, and therefore the cassette compartment must be down, as shown, prior to installation. The cassette compartment is held in position with 3 red screws and 1 much longer brass screw. This longer brass screw must be fitted at the front right-hand position as it goes through 2 pieces of plastic. If using the power supply we now try to eject the carriage, we find that it is not possible. This is because the carriage is normally under tension. This tension is provided by the cassette holder, which is to be installed next. To enable us to eject the carriage, gently lift up the wiper arm as shown, whilst unloading the mechanism. The carriage holder can now be installed by moving the loading arms forward and dropping the holder into the position as shown. Finally, the top plate can be installed. Full mechanical confirmation can be observed using a dummy cassette or a modified cassette adapter. The mechanism, front panel and outer case can now be reinstalled, and further confirmation of all VTR functions should be performed.